All right, good evening, everyone. I hope you are having a wonderful Wednesday. This is our midweek Bible study. How about that for old school? Okay, so years ago, there was a Super Bowl commercial that still is in my mind as one of my favorite of all times. Of course, we just celebrated our Super Bowl this past Sunday and had great fellowship meal after church. And then we had a game. But years ago, there was a Super Bowl commercial that started with cowboys herding cats. And they had all these cats that were going in these cowboys on horses, trying to herd cats. And it was hilarious. And I feel like that's a great representation of this class with the tables and chairs tonight and the fellowship. We're herding cats tonight, trying to get ready for class. Listen, we've had a great study. We had a meow right here.
I thought it would help when I moved it from over there.
Didn't help. Herding cats still is very accurate. So I feel like this has been a great study. Mark's done an incredible job of really setting stages. We've been talking about Daniel and how do you live this Christian life, right? How do you live this life in the middle of Babylon? And I think tonight we're in Daniel chapter 2 again. The next 2 weeks, I believe, we'll finish it. And then after that, we're going to have some topical stuff that goes along with this mindset. But man, it's hit me really, really strongly, this mindset of no matter what my circumstances are in which I live, I know, just as Peter says in his epistles, this isn't my home. This is just temporary residency. He calls it that I'm a resident alien, a stranger, right? And that my true home lies someplace different. And with that, it gives me the opportunity and purpose to proclaim Jesus to the world. Mark's done a great job. Let me pray as we get started, and then we'll turn it back over to him. Father God, thank you, Father, for this day. Thank you for an opportunity to break in the middle of our week, to study your word, to think about how we live a life that you called us to, even when, Father, that maybe that's not the norm in the society we live in, or maybe that society's pushing against that we still can be like a Daniel in the middle of Babylon, where we stand up for truth and we stand up for your truth and your word. And Father, we can proclaim Jesus Christ to the world. Thank you for Mark and his good work and just his great study and his talent and ability that you've given him. Bless us tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Scott. If I could figure out, can't even do that. If I could figure out how to do this without tangling myself up, I would pretend I'm the comedian and be in the round here and just keep roaming around. But that works better when there's a screen that has your picture on it all the time, which we don't have. So Mark, since I don't want to be the only one having to go through this, can you figure out a song we can sing? All right, do it. Now. Yeah. had no doubt you could do it. I didn't know you could do it that fast. So that's very impressive that you were ready to go. And thank you for joining in and making it a good start after Scott has prayed for us, and then to share this song of praise to God and to realize that that's what we're doing. Unfortunately, Daniel and his buddies were not marching to Zion. They were stuck in Babylon. And so it's trying to figure out what's going to happen. This is early in the life of Daniel. Again, we do not know how old he is. We kind of speculate that he's in that 15 to 16 year age group when he is taken in captivity. Remember that Babylon has come in. They haven't taken many, but they've taken the best. And they've said, we want the ones who can benefit us. So they're the ones that are coming with us. Daniel is one of those that's the best. So the story that you're very familiar with of the dream that Nebuchadnezzar has and Daniel's ability to interpret it comes somewhere within that first 3-year time span as they are being educated in Babylon. Daniel, no doubt, has had his education as a good Jewish individual. And he likely has much, if not all, of the Old Testament memorized. That was not uncommon in that day. And so he knows the text, and he is very involved in prayer life. That works through all of his life. But we find that first idea of his prayer ability as we move on through here in these first 3 years. So he's in the training ground. And he's being taught everything that's Babylon, and he's being taught everything that is against what he would have learned as a good student of the text that God had provided. Because Babylon's going to want him to know their gods and to think in those terms. Camp Pendleton is the U.S. Marine Corps base in San Diego County. If you've ever been in that area, it's one of the areas that everybody says it's a great place to live because you can go to the ocean, you can go 2 hours to the mountain, and so you can swim in the morning and then go skiing in the afternoon. So it's kind of a nice place to live, supposedly. I've visited there, but I've never tried to live there, so I don't know whether it would be the perfect spot or not. But it's not a bad place for the Marine base that's there. And every Marine shares things in common, but one thing specifically. They've all been through basic training. And they've all had a tough basic training as they've gone through that. And you may think that the idea with basic training is let's weed people out. And let's find out the ones who can make it. Let's make sure that we have those individuals protecting us. But if they're too weak, let's get them out of the way. That's not what the purpose is. Because when you look at the statistics, only about 10% of the people will not make it through basic training. There'll always be some that it's either too hard or they are just physically not able to or mentally not able to, but only about 10% wash out. The design of basic training is to strengthen you for what's coming. So you think in terms of Daniel as a young man, and he is being strengthened for what will take place and what he will have to endure in the coming years. He has no idea that there are 70 years in front of him in serving not just Nebuchadnezzar, but Belteshazzar, and then Darius, and then on. So his days are going to be busy, flushing out the weak, strengthening what lies ahead. That's where he finds himself. And I'm just curious, I had, when I was working with Brentwood Hills with the college group, had a couple of college kids that knew I ran just for exercise, and they said, we're going to do a marathon. Why don't you do that with us? Well, unfortunately, I thought it was a good idea. It's not, but I thought at that time that it was. So I said, okay, let's do that. One of them made it and did it. One of them didn't. So, but I did did go through that. Hey, anybody run a marathon? We got any other? You've run marathon. Are you good?
What? Yeah, do what?
Are you good at being? Oh, good. I feel better then.
I'll watch better than I am.
Did people tell you about 6 miles from the end that you're almost there?
Well, they told you that from 2 miles in.
Yeah. So for those of you that haven't done it, let me just encourage, don't ever, unless the person is 0.2 miles from the end, the 26 miles is behind them and they're at 0.2, don't tell them they're almost there. Even at that moment, you may not feel like you were almost there. So most people will break that race into 2 parts, the first 20 miles and then the last 6.2. And it's mentally challenging after you get past those 20 to get to the last 6.2. So just don't tell people they're almost there. And if anybody had approached Daniel and said, well, look how well you've done and life's going to be good from here on out, that was not what was about to happen. Trials and hardships. And we've been through them. I mean, Middle Tennessee has certainly experienced that over the last few days. But trials and hardships will either shape us or they'll destroy us. And it's more our mental condition that determines which it will be. Will I be shaped or will I be destroyed? Daniel and his friends, they're in boot camp. They didn't anticipate it. They didn't ask for this, but they are there and they are being trained. How will they handle the coming trials as they come upon them? Whether or not our society becomes more hostile to Christianity, who knows? In some ways, there's been a resurgence, especially among our young people, in belief. And that's a wonderful thing because we'd been on a downtrend. And as Scott was talking about what happens in Middle Tennessee and going through some of those statistics this past Sunday, it's a little saddening to me that my group, the baby boomers, that we're the ones who are fading away. Not physically, not by death, but just we're not attending like we should. We're not showing the spirituality that we should have. We got accustomed to watching TV and decided that we would continue that. Where some of our young people are becoming more and more excited about what God is doing in their lives through Jesus Christ. So that's the good news. The bad news is the boomers, who've always been the ones supposedly who were the strong ones spiritually, have kind of let that go by the wayside. Larry Osborne, in his book, Thriving in Babylon, lists 5 survival traits as he opens his chapter on this second chapter of Daniel. 5 survival traits that help as we go through our boot camp, because that's where life is as we continue to live within this world. And he says in the first one, and you could guess a lot of these and you could probably add some others, but he had 5. And the very first one is obedience. And the importance of recognizing that as an essential trait of discipleship. And hopefully we're always teaching that. It's not just a matter of believe and everything will be okay. It's a matter of put that belief into action, which needs to be in obedience to what God has had to say to us. Hebrews 5:8. Now I'll pull some scriptures, just single verses that you are familiar with. But when you think about obedience, that passage about Jesus in Hebrews 5:8, Jesus was God's son. He learned obedience from the things he suffered. Now, that's not a concept that I love, but I know the reality of suffering often is a better teacher than anything else, and it is the complete reverse of the I did it my way kind of concept. Well, if I do it my way, life's going to be easy. Nothing's ever going to be a problem, and it's all going to be fine. If I do it in a way that helps me grow and mature, and I'm still obedient, then there will be struggles. Perspective. And having the right perspective keeps things from getting blown out of proportion. I enjoy travel and I enjoy going places where I can hike. And I know there are some at my age, because there is an expiration date for all of us, that I'll never get to, that I won't get to do. I have no desire to do any of those hikes where you have to have oxygen and people to carry your stuff, unless they carry me. But if I can get up and back to the hotel room in a day, that's my kind of hiking. I don't even want a backpack. I just want to get back to the hot shower and a good warm meal. But there are places that I won't get to go anymore. There's an age limit for all of us. And that's a perspective that's okay. Life grows shorter as we age, but that's not a bad thing. It's a perspective that says, whatever I do, wherever I am, it's all for the glory of God. Paul understood that and lived it in a way that most of us would struggle to do. I had the opportunity with our auditorium class to spend a good bit of time with Philippians because there's so much that's powerful verses that we pull out. And one of those is the 4th chapter, verse 12. I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it's with a full stomach or empty, whether plenty or little. Paul says that, and he lived it, and he did it. Most of us are a little more challenged by that concept. Marines will come out of the service after all the time they've spent, and they will enter the business world. A lot of them will. And they'll generally do very well because they are very disciplined. They understand obedience. Now, they may not be Christian and understand it in the way that we would, that what really matters is our obedience to God. But their perspective is going to be different than mine. No one's ever shot at me. And for many of them, somebody has. And so the idea that you may fuss about something that's gone on in those office issues, unless you got a gun, they're not going to be nearly as concerned as some others might be. They've got that perspective. And the third thing that Osborne says is endurance, the ability to keep going. It reaps great rewards, but it's no fun getting there. You don't get endurance overnight. You build up to it. What was your longest run before the marathon? 21 or 22 miles. And I've never quite understood why they don't want you to run 26. Maybe they know, okay, I've done it. Why do it again? Now, too much risk of an injury. I have a nephew who decided he wanted to run a marathon, and so he was going to do it with me. And he knew I did it, so he came. This was back when Huntsville was the only city around that had a marathon, long before Nashville started theirs. Well, I had a hotel room. We spent the night. We were going to get up and we were going to run. And I said, well, what was your longest run? And he said, I think I went 8 miles one day. I thought, this is going to be interesting. And it was, but got to give him credit. He did make it to the end, and that's not always easy. But you build up that endurance. And one of the reasons that we as a church have been asked to pray and to fast and to read is because that helps build endurance. You're doing something that may be outside of your normal pattern. Especially if you are fasting, you're doing something that's outside of your normal pattern. Well, I made it all the way from breakfast to lunch. Does that count? Well, no, that's not exactly what is in mind there, but to build and to have that endurance as you move forward. Romans 5:3. And this is similar to what James says as he opens his first chapter, as we have divided chapters. Romans 5:3 says, we can rejoice too when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they help us develop endurance. Without them, the endurance will not be there in as strong a way. And then the fourth thing that Osborne lists in his chapter is that we also have a confidence. Now, God may be preparing me for Babylon. So he's going to work with me, and he's going to get me to a point where if I've been through this, well, I can handle that. That confidence is there as we move our way through life. Hebrews 12, verse 11. No discipline is enjoyable while it is happening. It's painful. But afterwards, there's a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way. So that idea of, I'm confident. I've done it. I can do it. It will be okay. And then the final thing that he mentions is courage. 1 Corinthians 16, as it comes to a close, and remember that's been a tough letter that Paul has written because he's had to fuss at this church. And he's done it unabashedly because they've got some things that need to be addressed and fixed. But as he gets to the end and some of the welcome, he closes close to the end with these words in 1 Corinthians 16, 13, and 14. Be on guard. Stand firm in the faith. Be courageous. Be strong. And do everything with love. Courage. And so obedience, a proper perspective, an endurance, a confidence, and a courage. You think about some of the places that you've been that have been opulent. And Melinda and I had an opportunity to go to the Biltmore. We've been once, and we were there, and it was without children because they were already out of the house, and so we could kind of do what we want. Didn't have to go through. Oh, do we have to do another tour? We could do another tour if we wanted to, and so we did most of them just to kind of see what's in the front and what's behind Biltmore. But you go through a home like that, and you think, how could you live in this kind of place? Babylon would have so much more than the Biltmore. There were vast fortifications, there were famous streets, there were canals, there were temples, there were palaces. 7 wonders of the ancient world. You have the Great Pyramid, you have the Colossus of Rhodes, the Lighthouse of Alexandria, the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus, and I don't know how to pronounce that or even know what it is, the Temple of Artemis, statue of Zeus, and the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, which probably didn't exist. But historically, we have thought they did, and may not have ever been such a thing. It's a little hard to imagine, but other than that, it was pretty incredible. But even living in an incredible city like that, even being the one in charge of that whole thing, bad dreams happen. Daniel chapter 2. If you wondered if we ever get there, we're there. One night, as the second chapter opens up, during the second year of his reign, so this gives us a little bit of the timing that's going on. It's been very early in his reign that Nebuchadnezzar has gone through Jerusalem and taken the best. One night during the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had such disturbing dreams, and notice the plurality, that he couldn't sleep. He called in his magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers, and demanded that they tell him what he had dreamed. As they stood before the king, he said, "I have had a dream that deeply troubles me, and I must know what it means." Evidently, it's a repetitive dream that he has, and he's not just having it once, but it's reoccurring. And he's got this dream, and it's made an impact on him. He seems to be having the same dream over and over again, and maybe the worry about that dream is bringing about insomnia. I rarely remember my dreams. I couldn't tell you one today. They are gone from my mind as quickly as I think about it, but most times I'll wake up and I have no idea if I've dreamed or not. It's just, people are different. Some of you know your dreams, remember your dreams, and sometimes find some meaning that may have been there within them. But the king, he's got quite a collection of mystics at his beck and call. This is what Daniel is to be. He's being trained for this purpose. But Nebuchadnezzar already has the men who are able to do that. Magicians. It's the Magi we meet every year at Christmas time. Persian astrologers who claim to be able to predict events based on the movement of the stars and planets. Kind of like astrologers, but astrologers were also a little bit more involved with that kind of understanding. The enchanters. These were the mediums. They claimed to have contact with the spirits, giving them knowledge about the future. I've always wondered what it must have been like for the witch of Endor when Samuel actually shows up. When Saul has gone, I need to talk to Samuel. Oh, I guess I get to. Somehow, I think everybody was astounded at that moment. And for those of you who are Bewitched fans, that's where Endora comes from, the Witch of Endor, and just kind of added an A to it. And so only Bible scholars knew that was what Bewitched was all about. You had the sorcerers. Now, that's Harry Potter. I knew very little about Harry Potter. Melinda and I went to Universal a few years ago because our daughter Martha Lynn had been and said it was kind of fun, so we decided we would go. And we're going through the area, and I didn't have one of the maps because I figured you'll find something eventually. And I know some people kind of going through a brick area that didn't seem really to go in anything. Went in that, and all of a sudden I'm in Harry Potter world, which I know nothing about. And this year we went back with the children who are going to be the grandchildren, much more involved with Harry Potter. So we slept through the 5 or 6 Harry Potter movies that exist, trying to stay awake, and really don't have any idea what really goes on and what it's all about. But the grandchildren, they had a good time. And, what's better than buying a $80 piece of cloth and saying that's a robe and having that for the rest of your trip. But that's the sorcerers that Nebuchadnezzar is alluding to, the wizards who would use potions and charms and incantations to coax information from the gods. And then finally the astrologers. And it's interesting that of this group, these 4 who are separate in what they are supposed to do. But of these 4, at least the way the text reveals it to us, the astrologers are the ones who give the answer. I have a feeling that most of us in here know our sign. I won't ask you. I think Melinda and I are the same. We're both Leo, right? You're Leo, even though we're on different months. Melinda's older than I am. By 4 whole days, but since we got married in the middle, it works to my advantage, and that there's a year difference at that anniversary. But I kind of like being a lion. It seemed like a good thing, and I would read the newspaper and I would read the astrology section, the horoscope, kind of out of curiosity. That finally dawned on me one day, that's not a good plan. Even if I'm just doing it for fun, that's not really a good plan. Because God's been pretty overt about his feelings of this type of thing. So even though we may view it as fun, I think it is something to recognize there is a danger there. There is an open door that doesn't need to be opened. The astrologers, because of their response, the king having a dream may have been somewhat of a common occurrence. This is verse 4. Then the astrologers answered the king in Aramaic. Now, you may wonder, well, why do they do that? Well, Aramaic was the common language of the day in the Gentile world. Akkadian would have been the language of Babylon. It is an extremely difficult language that was hard to learn. No doubt the 4 guys had to learn that. That was a part of their process, but it was very difficult. So they say to the king in Aramaic, "Long live the king. Tell us the dream, and we will tell you what it means." Now, Akkadian was the language of the intellectual elites, but Aramaic was the common language of the Gentile world. And we run into that in the New Testament at times too. And usually it'll be pointed out, well, this was in Aramaic, when it may be a word, it may be a phrase. It won't be typically as long a segment as exists in Daniel's record. Sigmund Freud, and whether you paid any attention to him or have any belief in what he thought, he was big on dreams, and that dreams meant so much about who we were and what we would be. And Freud, far from a believer, but Freud had some understandings that have a little bit of merit. He recognized, or he decided, that in the human psyche, there's the id and the ego and the superego. Now, others will divide it up into different ways, but the id is centered around those primal impulses, our pleasures, our desires, our unchecked wishes, and our desire to have those wishes fulfilled. That's the id. The id's kind of what we would call our human animal nature, the one that we try to control, because we realize that out of control, men and women do bad things. The ego, in Freud's view, was concerned with the conscious, the rational, the moral, the self-aware aspect of the mind. This is where I begin to say, yes, I have that impulse, but it's not to be utilized in that way. There needs to be a control. And then the superego is the censor for it all, which is responsible for enforcing the moral code. Now, you may have no desire to know anything about Sigmund Freud or what he believed, but those three things are not that far from helping us understand ourselves. Yes, I do have those drives. They are God-given. It is the control and the perspective of how to utilize them correctly that matters. The Egyptians and the Babylonians had compiled multiple books on dream interpretation. And if you go to Amazon, you'll find some, I think it's close to 3,000 books that you can work your way through that will help you interpret the dreams that you're having. So just pick one or two, and then you will know all about your dreams. There is one from 100 years ago that is 12,000 dreams interpreted. It was originally 10,000, but then along came cell phones, computers, televisions, and the like, so they added 2,000 more interpretations to be able to handle those dreams. It's a bit daunting, but you can find all you want about your dreams. I don't remember them, so it doesn't do any good for me. I could be like Nebuchadnezzar. If you can tell me what I dreamed, because I don't know what it was, and you can tell me what it means, then I'll know where I stand with that. You talk about a carrot and a stick. You know how we use that phrase? Well, sometimes you use the carrot to try to entice. Sometimes if the carrot doesn't work, well, the stick will get you a little further. That's what Nebuchadnezzar is going to do. But the king said to the astrologers, I'm serious about this. If you don't tell me what my dream was and what it means, you will be torn limb from limb, and your houses will be turned into heaps of rubble. But if you tell me what I dreamed and what the dream means, I will give you wonderful gifts and honors. Just tell me the dream and what it means. And they said again, please, your majesty, tell us the dream and we'll tell you what it means. He's got him figured out. He may be 2 years into his reign, but he's figured out what's going on with this group of wise individuals. Yeah, he can tell them the dream and they'll make up something, but whether it is real or not, who knows? So let's make it a test. You tell me what my dream was and then tell me what that meant. Well, tell us your dream and we'll do that. Well, no, I'm not going to do that. We're going to do this the hard way. You're going to have to tell me what the dream was. The king replies, and when you're king of the world, you can get away with this, and you can call out your subjects for stalling and extending the time, and you can give them the ultimate penalty. This is not a nice thing that's going to happen. Torn limb from limb, your family's destroyed, your houses becoming rubble. Now, in our day, and if you watch much of what goes on in our Congress, all the astrologers and the enchanters and the magicians and the sorcerers would have been yelling, reclaiming my time, so they could have a little more time to try to come up with whatever the answer needed to be at that moment. But Nebuchadnezzar, you're not going to have it. King replied, I know what you're doing. You're stalling for time because you know I'm serious when I say if you don't tell me the dream, you are doomed. So you've conspired to tell me lies, hoping I'll change my mind, but tell me the dream and then I'll know that you can tell me what it means. They follow up with an answer. And while there's not a whole lot of truth that exists in what they are or will try to do, their answer has truth within it. The astrologers replied to the king, no one on earth can tell the king his dream, and no king, however great and powerful, has ever asked such a thing of any magician, enchanter, or astrologer. Now, I like the way, even though that they're the ones talking and they're the ones involved in this interaction, that they bring everybody else into. Don't forget about the other guys. Don't just decide that we're the ones that are going to be in trouble. The king's demand is impossible. No one except the gods can tell you your dream, and they do not live here among people. Well, they're right. Why they've decided to be honest at this moment, I don't know. It may be that they've decided we're doomed. We might as well give an honest answer. Maybe that'll have some sway with the king. Nebuchadnezzar is not an easy boss. The king was furious when he heard this, and he ordered that all the wise men of Babylon be executed, and because of the king's decree, men were sent to find and kill Daniel and his friends. Now, that's got to be a rude awakening when you are a sophomore. I guess if they only go 3 years, they could be juniors by this point. But when you are at that level of, I just got here and I've just started the training, maybe 2/3 of the way through, and now I get to get killed for all of this. Imagine how you're going to feel if you're in Daniel's position. How much worse does this get? God, where are you in my life through all of these things that are going on? Do you panic? Do you rebel? Do you run? There's nowhere to go. And Daniel, as likely a 18, 17-year-old, has a level of maturity far beyond his physical years. When Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, came to kill them, no, they just waltzes in. It's time to kill the people that the king has told me to. Daniel handled the situation with wisdom and discretion. He asked Arioch, why has the king issued such a harsh decree? So Arioch told him all that had happened. Now remember, he's the one that God has made more favorable to Daniel through the interactions that he's had throughout. So there's a relationship that exists with Arioch and with Daniel. Daniel went at once to see the king and requested more time to tell the king what the dream meant. Well, you got to lose. You might as well give it a try. Don't know how old Nebuchadnezzar is. He's probably a young man. So he's listening, and he hears the plea of Daniel. Much of our lives and much of the things that we spend a lot of effort and worry and time on are things that are in some ways outside of our control. And we grow best not from the times of blessing, but we grow best from the pressure of problems. And faith will hold or it will fold in the crucible, and it depends on where I have put my true trust, how I will handle that crucible of life and what I will do with it. Note the two unexpected occurrences. Nebuchadnezzar's head henchman appears before the king with the man he should have killed. Now, you told me to go out and kill everybody, but I thought I'd bring him to you so you guys could talk first. That's not necessarily going to put you in a good standing with the king, but it worked. So Nebuchadnezzar says, I'll give you some time for that interpretation. And one of the blessings that Daniel has is that he is not alone. He has friends, and he has the sense to elicit the help of those friends in this situation, knowing that it's beyond his ability. Then Daniel went home and told his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, what had happened. He urged them to ask the God of heaven to show them his mercy by telling them the secret, so they would not be executed along with the other wise men of Babylon. Prayer. And Scott has asked us to keep the Lord's Prayer at the forefront of our prayer lives. And just again, remembering that we're praying, we're spending our time reading, and we're fasting. Well, that was the forefront of Daniel's life, and he gets Hananiah and Mishael and Azariah, his three friends. Let's share together in prayer. Prayer doesn't come easily for all of us. For some of you, it is such a blessing that you are in prayer and you have your list of things that you pray for. For some of us, that's a harder concept, and we don't always think about it. If they're going to get a prayer answered, they might not prefer to not have been in such a situation with such stress. But they're trusting God, even though it's a challenge. When Jesus teaches us to pray, it's not an elaborate prayer. He talks about those who would stand on the corner and pray in such a way that everybody would pay attention to them. But when he teaches us to pray, he says, pray like this. It's been probably 40 years ago. And St. Mary's, one of our facilities, nursing facilities, old age me facility, and they would call preachers from around, even though it was a Catholic facility, and they would invite us to come and do a devotional on a Sunday afternoon. Well, I had the opportunity to do that several times, and the first time I went, they said, "Would you like to lead us in some songs?" Well, I'm not Mark, so no, I would not like to lead you in songs because it won't work out very well at all. Let me just go on with my lesson. So I went through my lesson, and then the lady that was in charge of the whole thing, she said, "Well, what we do now is we recite the Lord's Prayer," and I went blank. I said, "Well, let's sing." and I can find it quick enough probably to pull this out, because all I could think of was, "Now I lay me down to sleep, pray the Lord my soul to keep." I thought, I don't know, maybe they won't know, and it'll be okay. But your mind doesn't always help you, so becoming more and more familiar with the way that Jesus has said, this is how you pray. The answer is provided. And Daniel's response is a response of praise. Verse 19 through 23. That night, the secret was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven. He said, "Praise the name of God forever and ever, for he has all wisdom and power. He controls the course of world events. He removes kings and sets up other kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the scholars. He reveals deep and mysterious things and knows what lies hidden in darkness, though he is surrounded by light. I thank and praise you, God of my ancestors, for you have given me wisdom and strength. You have told me what we ask of you and revealed to us what the king demanded." Now, human nature, if we'd had that answer, most of us would have, maybe some of us, would have jumped up, put our robe on and said, "I got it. I can tell you what are the honors and what are the gifts that you were going to give to me." But not Daniel. He responds with praise. And how often when the prayer has been answered, whether it's been answered in the way that I want or the way that I may not want, how often do I have the ability to go to God with praise? In private and in public, Daniel always gave the glory to God. He is a man of great humility. It's a common thread among the men and women that God uses greatly, a humility. They're not impressed with their own gifts and insights. They're captured by the greatness and wisdom of God. Next week, Lord willing, we'll take a look at the dream. You're familiar with the dream, but it is such an incredible prophecy that recognizing what the dream meant gives such a reason to find the truth of what God has said. I wanted to close this evening with Psalm 5. It starts with these words, "O Lord, hear my prayer." And maybe that's a good way to start our prayer. And maybe it'd be even better to say thank you for hearing my prayer. "Oh Lord, hear me as I pray. Pay attention to my groaning. Listen to my cry for help, my King and my God, for I pray to no one but you. Listen to my voice in the morning, Lord. Each morning I bring my request to you and wait expectantly. Oh God, you take no pleasure in wickedness. You cannot tolerate the sins of the wicked. Therefore, the proud may not stand in your presence, for you hate all who do evil. You will destroy those who tell lies. The Lord detests murderers and deceivers." And then he goes back. David goes back to the prayer part, or to the better part of the prayers as we understand them. "Because of your unfailing love, I can enter your house. I will worship at your temple with deepest awe. Lead me in the right path, O Lord, or my enemies will conquer me. Make your way plain for me to follow. My enemies cannot speak a truthful word. Their deepest desire is to destroy others. Their talk is foul like the stench from an open grave. Their tongues are filled with flattery. O God, declare them guilty. Let them be caught in their own traps. Drive them away because of their many sins, for they've rebelled against you. Daniel doesn't pull any punches. He's got the good and the bad. It's always in his prayer. But let all who take refuge in you rejoice. Let them sing joyful praises forever. Spread your protection over them, that all who love your name may be filled with joy. For you bless the godly, O Lord, and surround them with your shield of love. Earlier, I mean, that's early on in the Psalms, but earlier has been the psalm from which we get the surround us, O Lord, which is a beautiful thought. Surround us, O Lord. So, Mark, can we do surround us, O Lord, as our closing prayer?